Welcome to Densify Talks. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Brian. I'm the producer of Densify Talks. And on this episode, we welcome Ashley Rodrigue from Go-To-Market Acceleration at Intel. Today, we have a lot to talk about. Our conversation will center around the following topics: how Intel and Densify are connected, 5th Gen Intel Xeon Processor, about Intel Cloud Optimizer, accelerators, modernization, regional availability of product and no more hoarding, Intel Foundry, Intel and ASML, high NA technology, containers, guardrails, and even Ashley had the opportunity to tour one of their production facilities, so she's going to be sharing the impact of in-house capability. And Andrew and Ashley will talk about trends and where they see things going. It's going to be an excellent conversation packed full of great information. We hope you enjoy this information and walk away with helpful content. Without further ado, here is your host, CTO and co-founder of Densify, Andrew Hillier.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm Andrew Hillier, the CTO and one of the co-founders of Densify. And today I'm joined by Ashley Rodrigue. Ashley, do you want to say a bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you today. At Intel, we have a great deal of exciting activity going on in our new, what we call Go-to-Market Acceleration Office. This is a brand new team that I recently joined, where we are helping put together good sales plays for customers in a very well-defined way, so that's easy for customers to find from all the width and breadth of what Intel offers exactly what they're looking for. So it's an exciting new team, and I'll be getting kicked off with that in the second half of this year. I also have the privilege of working with the whole Densify team and managing the Intel Cloud Optimizer program globally. I'm based in New York, but I do get to work across all the time zones in different countries. So we've been doing this now for quite a while with Densify, and really it's been a privilege. It's an amazing partnership. We're excited to see where it takes us as we go forward with the new Go-to-Market Acceleration Office as well, because part of the mission of that office is to help drive programs like what we've built with Densify.
Great to have you, Ashley, and I've been looking forward to this chat. And you said something that piqued my interest. You said Go-to-Market Acceleration. And I just watched a video of a 4th of July video of people driving cars off a cliff in Alaska. And you mentioned acceleration. Did you have a great 4th of July? Did you drive any cars off any cliffs?
I did not drive any cars off any cliffs. I did have a very nice holiday, though. It was nice to have a little downtime, a long weekend. But yeah, I didn't do anything that exciting. Wow, that's going to have to look into that. I don't know much about that tradition.
Usually there's videos of people blowing things up and having Roman candle fights, but this was next level driving cars off cliffs. So glad you survived the holiday. So tell me, what's obviously lots of stuff new with you. What's the biggest stuff on your radar right now that's happening at Intel?
There are always amazing things happening at Intel. We're such a large company with so many different products and portfolios of offerings that seems like we're always launching new things. And the latest buzz is really all about our 5th Gen Intel Xeon processors. Since those launched, we've gotten a lot of buzz around how those are performing. And that seems to be what most of the conversations I'm having with a lot of our customers and partners center around. So people want to know, what does this generation of product do to help me with the workloads I have? And are there advantages that I might be interested in, and those kinds of things. So it seems like most of the conversations I'm having are really about that. There is a great story to tell here with these new 5th Gen Intel Xeon processors. We've got, for general compute performance, we're seeing amazing performance, really, 84% better than 3rd Gen Intel Xeon. So if you compare it to a couple years back, which most customers, as they're switching, are a couple years back, 84% better performance is pretty impressive over just 2 generations of product. We're also seeing a lot of customers and a lot of buzz in the industry around AI. Everyone's asking, for AI training and inference performance, what could I expect? Again, would compare that to a couple generations back of products. So, if you compare that to 3rd generation Intel Xeon, you'd see a 14x better on 5th Gen. So that's huge, right? Especially for that AI training and interest that everyone seems to have. And then the average performance per watt efficiency is another thing that folks are asking a lot about. So we are seeing 10x higher when using Intel accelerator engines. So that's, again, really exciting. And these are some of the things that we hear people chattering about lately at Intel. That's kind of what's new, what's exciting.
And those numbers they go way beyond Moore's law. Like the 84% number, I was just writing that down as you were saying it, is an interesting number because that's a big hop, but the 14X is off the charts. And I guess it is. I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with the accelerators, things like AMX, for accelerating AI type operations. We tend to look for software, PyTorch or TensorFlow that will accelerate on that and just put it on that. Because if you get it on the right chip, it just goes so much faster. So the accelerators, I mean, tell me a bit about the accelerators. I know there's a whole bunch of different accelerators. AMX is top of mind because of the AI acceleration, but there are a whole bunch, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, that's one of the things that I love about working with Densify when it comes to helping customers. We have so many different products. If you just start there, right? You think about what are all the different things that Intel has to offer. There's so many different products. And within all of those products, there's so many different features and benefits. And depending on the workloads and the software that the customer runs, there could be features and accelerators specific to whatever workloads the customer is trying to optimize, right? So the hard part becomes matchmaking all of that stuff and taking advantage of what's actually there and available. And so we do find many times, when we sit down and we consult with customers, around what would be best from the portfolio of things that we have to offer, that a lot of times they have no idea that something exists from an accelerator perspective. And they could have been leveraging that and getting, so much better performance. And it's as simple as just helping them find it, right? We put all of this effort and energy into R&D and developing, creating, and bringing to market all these great accelerators for different workloads. And then the reality is sometimes it's very hard to make sure that the customers are aware of that. A couple of examples I could share would be like working with a customer that doesn't realize that their specific workload has been optimized for a specific Intel feature or accelerator. And if they were just running that version of that software, they could take advantage of it and get, so many times more performance or better experience out of just leveraging this accelerator and that optimized version of the software. So that happens a lot. We have those conversations, and usually it ends, once we have those conversations, in a customer being delighted by the fact that they learned something new and it was very easy to take advantage of something that's, been available to them, but they just didn't realize. A lot of times when we enter into conversations, we try to understand what workloads are running, what the customer's, software stack looks like, and then map that back to, okay, what accelerators do we have for specific software so that they can leverage the right generation of Intel product to take advantage of that? It's kind of a dance to try to figure all of that out. But once you do find the right match on a lot of this stuff, it can make a huge difference to customer in terms of total cost of investment or, the performance that they're looking to achieve.
Yeah. And I remember when we first started working together on some of the accelerator stuff, it's funny because Intel spends billions on building these advanced features in the hardware. Right. And customers spend billions on software and hosting it, and linking the two together makes a ton of sense. Not just on the right accelerator. We see customers out there on something that's 10 or 12 years old. Like just making it newer would be so much benefit. But it's hard to make these decisions out there to figure out what to run something on. And once you put it somewhere, most people don't touch it. They just let it ride off into the sunset. So there's so much opportunity to optimize these things. So you referred to it earlier, Intel Cloud Optimizer. Maybe it makes sense just to kind of say what that is and how we work together just a little more clearly. Maybe you can kind of hit that for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of what you just stated is exactly why we created Intel Cloud Optimizer, because we wanted to help customers do that matchmaking in a easy way. And it is a bit manual if you try to do it just sitting down with each customer and going through that process. But if you can apply software that can help a customer do that, that really is the best way to address that issue, right? So this is why back 3+ years ago, Intel was on sort of a quest to try and find a good partner to work with to create software that would help customers solve that problem. And so we, inside of IT at Intel, ran a bunch of different solutions, software products from third-party companies that do different things to help customers with that type of stuff. And we took a look at how all of that ran on our own workloads. So we ran a bunch of different options and we kind of got under the hood and we said, all right, well, this one does this really well, or this one does that really well. And we kind of found some of the areas where there were gaps and things. And in the end, after assessing many different options, we found, that we liked Densify software the best in terms of helping customers find the right infrastructure, especially for their cloud workloads. So if you rewind back 3 years ago, we were trying to that was a hard space for us to help customers with. and we were looking to make it easier. And so that one area of making sure that you have the right infrastructure for your workloads in the public cloud on AWS, Azure, GCP, or even in container environments as well, that was a struggle. And so we found Densify to be best in class when it came to our own workloads, just running it in-house and looking at how it operated, and the fact that it was tunable and was really extensible to other things that we had in our software stack, the other solutions we had in-house. And thinking about helping customers, we were kind of looking at, all right, how is this going to be viewed by our entire customer base? Are there ways that it stays sort of agnostic across clouds? And is there ability for it to plug into the other things that the customer may have? And there were so many options and ways to do that we found it to be really versatile and effective and tunable. And in the end of the evaluation, we selected Densify to be our partner in building what we call now the Intel Cloud Optimizer, which is a version of that product. And it is also a program where Intel sponsors the first 12 months of the software usage for the customer. So for qualifying customers, we will cover the cost for the first 12 months to help get it set up and running, and helping customers make sure they're getting the right infrastructure for all their workloads using software-driven approach, which was our goal in the beginning. And it's proven to be really successful. We've got, many customers globally that are seeing great results, and it's been a great partnership. So thank you guys for everything you do to help enable that program and for the awesome software.
And thank you. It's been great working together. And we normally try to keep our podcast not too long, but if you want, you can keep going about how great Densify is. You can make more time for it. But thanks for the kind words. And it's really a great relationship we have. It's kind of a no-brainer, really, because funded and it does this advanced analysis. It makes complete sense. So it's been great working together. We work together in some big customers, and we see all these, situations where there's, maybe cost-saving opportunity, maybe faster product available, keeping stuff on the latest, even just keeping stuff on the latest offerings. The cloud providers are constantly coming out with new things, and just staying on top of that is important. I know, actually, we've driven a lot around modernization, trying to keep people on the latest, which you were describing at the outset, the newest instance types with the newest, again, like you said, even awareness, not only of the accelerators, but of the actual existence of a new generation out there is a challenge to stay on top of.
It is. I was really surprised as we started to see a bunch of customers come into the program once we had, say 30 customers globally, kind of looking across averages, and you could see that so many customers were running on an average of 6 years old product. It was shocking to me, actually, because you kind of assume that customers usually are running on a couple generations back, but to find out that they were running on, 6-year-old technology in an environment where the cloud is flexible, dynamic, and you can change it whenever you want was really surprising to me. Mm-hmm. Promise of the cloud is you could always be running on the latest and greatest, right? So it was a little surprising to see customers running on such old product. And as I mentioned some of those stats earlier on, just 2 generations of product can make a huge difference. Imagine what it is to go from 6 generations back to what's available today. I mean, it makes a massive difference.
It's like running on a laptop from 2012 or something. It makes no sense, and especially because the latest ones are often the same price. They're faster, but they don't increase in price every generation. So it's kind of baffling, but it's difficult to shift onto newer ones. You have to make sure it's got the right disk configuration and all that type of stuff. So, it's important to have analytics to figure that out. Now, also we see the latest and greatest stuff out there. It's also important, I think, to customers that we've seen this jointly, that there be enough of that product in the cloud provider to host their workloads. I know we've seen cases where Databricks, for example, they like to make sure that there's enough of the latest, R7s or M7s to be able to run the workload on. So I guess, some of your recent changes at Intel also help on that front, making sure there's lots of availability of product, right?
Before I kind of touch on that, I just want to say, I think what you touched on there in terms of making sure you choose the right thing is the issue, right? We find, people might be running on really old stuff only because there's lack of certainty around what options are really the right ones. And within those, are you going to accidentally break something by making a change? So the risk that's involved there. So I do think that is really at the root of the issue, which is why I love the ability to use software to help solve that and answer all those questions, because it can do that, right? But you're right. The issue also becomes not just in a perfect world, this instance type is the right one for me and it has the right accelerator and it, will run my workload the best. It's also, is it available, right? And so the cool thing about Intel, and this is kind of another what's new, right, is we are a manufacturer of our own technology. So a lot of companies don't have that advantage. We do, right? So we are a manufacturer that's been investing pretty heavily. In the news lately, you probably have seen different announcements and things about all of the investments we're making in new manufacturing facilities. So we've got, some really exciting ability to ramp up our scale and offerings here locally in the Americas region. I mean, of course, we have manufacturing globally as well, but we've made a lot of investments and we are now also operating kind of a separate entity called Intel Foundry. So we're not only manufacturing for ourselves, but we are a foundry business as well. This requires obviously, big investment to produce all of the demand that we're going to have both for our own in-house product and any of our foundry customers' products as well. So we've been doing some pretty exciting manufacturing for years, but now we're actually expanding that considerably with building a lot of new facilities, should be able to ramp up based on customer demand, both our own and also our customers on the foundry business side. So that's exciting and it's relatively new. It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out as things go forward, but it's definitely been a topic of conversation with a lot of our customers. Many customers like the idea that we are going to have a lot more capacity available through our own facilities. And if we rewind back, there was a couple of years there, especially during the pandemic, where it was really tough to meet our customer demand. I mean, that was across the board throughout the entire industry. When I say our, not just Intel, but everyone, there was just such a surge in demand that we didn't have enough supply to address that. So I remember at that time I was, working with customers myself directly where we were trying to do updates and let them know when we would have product for certain orders that they had placed, and everything was just running on such short supply. So it's nice to see also now that we are going to have so much more ability to produce capacity, and not only, like I said, just on the Intel side, but also on the Intel Foundry side. So it's exciting to see that.
And there won't be any cases where your chips are stuck in a ship that's sideways in the Suez Canal. Sorry, I can't get it.
Yeah, the beauty of being a global manufacturer when you look across the globe is that we have so many plants everywhere. We're obviously making some pretty good investments in building here in the Americas. The cool thing also, one of the neatest things that I had the opportunity to do as an Intel employee was to tour a factory with a customer. So we were able to kind of take a customer through and show them how innovative we are in these factories. And we have this interesting ability for the factories that we have that are what we call this copy exact. So if a factory is manufacturing a certain technology, we have other factories that do the same thing in other regions of the world, right? And they're copy exact, right? So they're the same exact setup and plant. And we have the ability also to utilize what we call the ROC, so the Remote Operations Center, to remotely control those factories. So it is really amazing to be a global supplier. It does give us more flexibility to have factories across the globe where we have that type of control, where we've got the production kind of diversified, if you will, in different geographies.
That makes complete sense. I was flying recently. I was wondering, why aren't all airports exactly the same? Isn't there one best design? There's a big flat piece of land. So it's good to hear that you're doing that with your factories. And it really is interesting because it is the definition of high tech. Like the way these things are manufactured it's kind of the most advanced of all technologies, probably.
It is.
And there was this new machine I saw in the news in Portland, I think it is, where there's some brand new machine that was all in the news recently. Is that's even more advanced, right?
Yeah. Actually, so we've been working with ASML. What you're talking about, I believe, is the high NA EUV, high resolution patterning that we've put together with them. And this is very advanced, right? It's an evolutionary step in the way that we create product. It definitely gives us a competitive advantage. It is really cutting edge. This thing is, one of the exciting pieces of what's new as well. If you look at the news, you'll see kind of buzz about this, and the commitment that we have and our vision to being a best in class leading manufacturer of technology like this has to also come from the type of investments like this one. So this is really, it's got an extended roadmap that goes with it, with amazing improvements, reduced complexity and cost, and the cycle times and energy that the chip industry needs to drive affordable scaling into the next decade. So this is a big long-term play, a big investment, and, very exciting. Like you said, this is one of the most cutting edge technologies, is actually manufacturing this stuff. I mean, I saw that with my own eyes as we looked. These factories run, a lot of them, completely without any people, right? They're these huge machines cranking out this amazing product, and it's all automated. It's really cool to see that as a customer when we show them this, kind of eye-opening at what an amazing manufacturing company we are. And then beyond that, if you look at it, where does this investment take us as we go forward, and what might be possible? I mean, those are the kinds of things that really get all the geeky or nerdy people excited, right? You try to look at, some of this technology that's being implemented now, and you see what's possible today and think about what is it going to be 10 years from now. It's pretty exciting.
I mean, we humans can just be the beneficiaries. We don't have to go in the room and contaminate it with our presence. So let the robots build the chips, and we can just run all our lovely workloads. Back to the workloads again. So we talk about cloud. Cloud's not new. Obviously, there's a huge push for optimization. Even though it's been around a while, there's still so much opportunity to optimize that we're jointly uncovering. Let's talk about containers for a second. Containers are kind of the next big trend. You talk about kind of roadmap on the hardware side. Let's talk a bit about containers and what's happening in that space.
Containers is one of the areas I think we still have so much waste in the way that customers are managing their containers, and so much opportunity to help customers save a lot of money. Pretty much every customer I talk to struggles with this. It's actually one of the most validating conversations I listen to when we talk about containers and we raise some of the issues, because you see customers immediately that everything that we're saying about it resonates with them, right? They're like, oh yes, I have that problem too. I'm dealing with that also. It's such a struggle, right? It's kind of, one of those things where it's a hot button, I think, for a lot of companies to get that right. And it's actually really hard to get it right. And I think the same is true for cloud, but this sort of takes it to the next level when you look at containers. And that's one of the things that we've been doing recently with the Intel Cloud Optimizer program, which is a bit more centered on the cloud side of things, is that some customers have been very interested in also trying out the container capability, and they're seeing amazing results from that too. So this is another area where partnering with Densify from the Intel perspective is really great. And I think we're delivering good customer value by doing that as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the container waste often shows up as cloud waste, obviously if they're running in the cloud, where you look like you have a very expensive scale group or something. When you dig under that and under the layers, you realize what's actually happening in the containers is causing a lot of inefficiency. The nice thing about it is that, I think, again, we've jointly found this, is that it solves a nice problem in that when we talk about people being stuck on old instance types. Well, and you talked about it's difficult to move off those things. And one of the things we see is, your boot image might change, or there might be a different ENA driver, or who knows what. There's all kinds of things that might ruin your day when you try to move to a newer instance type. If there's other updates involved, it might be a bit of a project or a bit of work to do that. But containers abstract that completely. So we find that containers are running on nodes, and they don't really care what those nodes are. So you can always put them on the latest nodes much more easily. Like we see in container environments, getting them all on the latest, for example, the latest Intel gear that has that AMX driver, the AMX accelerator. There's no reason not to do that for your scale group, because the containers, the drivers are in the nodes, not the containers. So they will keep running just fine, and they can start leveraging accelerators right away. So it removes some of the complexity of a pure cloud optimization where the software might have ties to drivers and things like that. In the container world, there's no reason not to be on the latest stuff from what we see. So it kind of is a nice way that way to optimize it. But of course, there's a lot more moving parts to optimize and a lot more potential waste.
Yeah, if you look at trends and where you see things going, right? Containers is definitely one of those areas that we see customers trying to figure out, right? We get a lot of questions about this. There's definitely a lot of pain points there for some of the reasons you just mentioned. There's a good opportunity for us to, together help customers in this area. So I think we're only going to get better as we go forward here, but I definitely see they're at a point now where a lot of customers have figured out different solutions along the way to address different areas and are, doing an okay job of that. And then now they're like, okay, this particular space in the container space is tough. That's, I think, an area where we could probably do a whole podcast on containers themselves and sort of the nuances there. Maybe we should do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe we should queue one of those up. Yeah, there's so many adjacent. FinOps is a big area that this is all highly relevant to, obviously, from the cost saving perspective. We find SREs, the risk reduction, reliability, containers, AI in containers. We could probably talk for an hour. And again, and the accelerators, things like that. So maybe we should leave that for a future episode. Any other parting words? Anything else as far as where we see things going from your perspective, Ashley?
For sure, the FinOps trend is spot on. I know you guys were at FinOps X. I know there was a lot of buzz there. I think a great event that you hear kind of, what's on customers' minds and things. So, I think you hear a lot of people looking for ways to control, but within certain guardrails, if you will. So I think that's one of the things that we've seen evolve over time, over the partnership the last 3 years. One of the things from customer feedback that I think you've been able to do a great job implementing in the software is to kind of, give those guardrails and the ability to tune that dial up and down. So to me, that's exciting because not only is the engine itself tunable around certain workloads and whether or not you want to optimize, something for performance or something for cost or both, depending on what the workloads are, the ability to put guardrails in place and then just let people operate within those guardrails, knowing that they won't be able to go too far outside of what is expected, right? And then the ability to tune those up and down. I think that is a great concept and it's kind of fresh and new. And I do think we'll see more of that happening. The reason for that is because of this whole kind of trend of decentralized micro purchasing and the way that, especially the cloud is consumed, right? It used to be a lot more centralized. A lot of companies we worked with had an IT team that really, had controls across the board. And whereas now things are a bit more decentralized. And so putting the right, what we would call guardrails in place makes a whole lot of sense. And then people can operate on their own independently as long as it's kind of within that structure. So I'm excited about that. I think that's going to be great.
Yeah, no, we're excited about it too. I think the big thing for me on that is that I use an analogy to virus scanners. Actually, it's like I could send you an email saying, "Hey, please take these files off your laptop. They're dangerous." Every week, and you might not do it. Or we could just install a virus scanner, and then you'll just get a warning, and it'll be taken care of. And to your point, in kind of a decentralized way. So I feel like these guardrails. This is probably a whole topic for a whole other podcast as well. They're nice that way because rather than me telling you what to do, hey, change your instance type to X, we're saying do whatever you want. We're just going to warn you in your tooling when you go into the guardrails, something that's too expensive or too small or doesn't have a disk or whatever it is. So yeah, we're pretty excited because I think it's a bit of a paradigm shift and I know you are as well. So that's kind of a nice direction from a FinOps perspective. It just makes sense to encode this as policy in the stack and not chase people with reports. So I think we can get there jointly with Intel Cloud Optimizer.
Yeah, I completely agree. We should do that other podcast around the container topic and maybe the guardrails because it's so exciting and I think it's cutting edge. And I do think we're seeing a lot of great feedback already from customers that are starting to implement some of that stuff. So for sure, we should talk more about it on the next podcast.
Well, with that, let's definitely do that. So let's wrap this up for today and we'll plan another one. And Ashley, thank you so much for joining today and sharing your perspective.
Thank you so much for having me.
Andrew Hillier and Ashley Rodrigue, thanks so much. That was a great conversation. My name is Brian, producer of Densify Talks, and thank you for listening and joining us today. We really appreciate it. We've got more episodes coming on the podcast, including their Containers Part 2 discussion, which is coming up soon. Make sure to subscribe to the show so that you do not miss out on any episodes. And we'd love to hear from you. Densify.com. You can also send us any questions. And also, if you'd like to be on the show, email us, marketing@densify.com. Have a wonderful and great day. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you in the next episode. And we are signing off of Densify Talks.